Okay, so imagine this. You're trying to compress, I don't know, the entire sonic history of the British invasion.
Right. The whole
The sound of 60s pop, modern worship music, all of it. And you're trying to squeeze it into something small enough to, fit on your pedal board.
That sounds ambitious, taking this massive, iconic piece of hardware and just shrinking it.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack today. Our mission is a deep dive into the BIS BC2 combo drive. It came out back in 2011.
Yeah.
And this little red box basically promised to capture the sound of one of those famous British amps ever, the Vox AC30 Top Boost.
And this is so much more than just a piece of gear. It's almost a cultural shortcut. The BC2 is what you'd call an amp-voiced overdrive or a preamp.
So it's not just a distortion pedal.
Not at all. It's trying to be the whole amp. And that AC30 sound, that bright, bell-like shimmering tone, it's just foundational. I mean, if you've listened to the Beatles, U2, Tom Petty.
Any modern indie band.
Any modern indie band, yeah. You are hearing the DNA of that amp.
So for you, the listener, we're really going to pull back the curtain on the engineering here.
We are. How did BOSS actually manage to recreate that incredibly complex harmonic content? That shimmer, that jangle, that really specific breakup, all in this, little affordable box.
It's a huge challenge.
It requires a really deep understanding of amp physics, which they tried to model digitally.
Okay, so let's start with the sound itself. What are the sonic hallmarks the BC2 absolutely had to get right to be convincing?
Well, it's all about that famous, bright, chimey top end. It's what lets the guitar cut through a mix.
And those upper mids, right?
Exactly. But the real trick with an AC30, and what's so hard to model, is its relationship with the low end.
It needs to be warm, but not muddy.
Precisely. You want that jangle, but it can never become boomy. If you think about, say, a classic Fender amp when it's cranked, you get those scooped mids and a lot of low-end thump.
Right.
The AC30 is the opposite. It has this prominent singing mid-range and a really tight bottom end that just doesn't get in the way.
And that's why you need modeling, not just a simple clipping circuit. You mentioned it, so let's get into the architecture. How did BOSS tackle this?
This is where the engineering gets really neat. The core of it is BOSS's composite object sound modeling, or QOSM.
QOSM. Yeah.
And what's key to remember is that this isn't just mimicking, say, an EQ filter or a diode. It simulates the actual physics of the full tube amp experience.
So it's not just a distortion pedal. It's like a tiny computer running a physics simulation of an amplifier.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. For the BC2, that meant simulating the AC30's unique preamp EQ curves, the dynamic behavior of its power amp.
When you're pushing those EL84 tubes.
Exactly. Yeah. Including that compression, that sag that makes a real amp feel so reactive.
And doesn't stop there, does it?
No. It even models the influence of the speaker and the cabinet resonance. Capturing that interaction between the power amp and the cabinet is so vital for the AC30 sound.
Because that's where the chime comes from.
A huge part of it, yes. That chime is really the upper harmonics being filtered and compressed by the entire system working together, especially that high-frequency gain stage, the top boost circuit. If you only model the preamp, you just miss that bloom.
So the BC2 is a full amp voice in a pedal. That's a massive distinction. And the timing here matters. It came out in the early 2010s. What was happening then?
Well, BOSS was making this big push into amp voicing pedals, and this one filled a really serious hole in the market.
Why this specific sound?
Think about it. By the early 2010s, bands were touring with more complex pedal boards and volume restrictions at venues, in clubs, in churches. They were all getting tighter.
And an actual AC30 top boost is?
Wonderful, but notoriously loud and heavy. And often pretty temperamental. They get that classic sound, you have to run it hot.
Which you just can't do in most places anymore.
Exactly. So the BC2 was positioned as the solution. It gave you that iconic, expensive, heavy sound in a really affordable, compact, and consistent format.
So suddenly, an indie player could get their chime tone into, say, a Fender Twin, or even a solid-state amp.
Without breaking their back or their bank account. Yeah, it was a game changer for gigging musicians.
And since it was designed for those players who need simplicity on stage, let's talk about the controls. I mean, they look deceptively simple.
They do. You have your standard level control, which is basically the modeled amp's master volume.
And then bass and treble.
Right, but these aren't just generic tone knobs. They're an active EQ section, and they're tuned specifically to mimic how the AC30's tone stack behaves.
Which is very interactive, isn't it?
Highly interactive. You adjust the treble, and it actually changes how the bass control responds, and vice versa. BISS modeled that relationship.
But the real, I guess, the magic trick here, the thing that hides all the complexity, is that sound knob.
That is the one. That single dial completely morphs the character of the pedal.
When I was looking into this, seeing what that one knob controls simultaneously was genuinely surprising.
It is. It's doing all the heavy lifting of the digital model. It's not just turning up gain.
Not just more dirt.
No. It controls, what, 6 key parameters at the same time?
We should probably list those out just to get a sense of the scope.
Okay, sure. So as you turn that one knob, you are simultaneously adjusting the overall gain level.
Right, the distortion.
The distortion. Then the complex EQ tilt across the whole frequency spectrum.
So it's revoicing itself as it gets dirtier.
Perfectly put. Then you add in the amount of compression, that sag we talked about.
The feel.
The feel, and also the overall high-end brightness and the level of harmonic saturation, so how rich the overtones are.
Oh, there's one more.
Yep. The modeled speaker resonance, all of that is coordinated, all from sweeping a single knob.
That's just immense. In an analog pedal, you'd need 5 or 6 separate knobs to do that, and you'd never get them to interact so smoothly.
You couldn't. This is why the digital approach works so well for this kind of amp voicing. BOSS pre-programmed the optimal relationships. So as you sweep the sound knob, it's just like pushing a real AC30 harder.
The preamp gets dirtier, the power amp starts to compress.
And the cabinet starts to resonate more, all in concert.
Which for you, the player, means you can go from clean jangle to full-on crunch with just one turn. It's like switching amp channels.
Deeply expressive, but with a simple 4-knob layout.
Let's walk through that range. Where does the sound knob start?
Okay, so if you keep the sound setting low, you're in pure, sparkling, clean territory. Just jangle.
The Birds, the Beatles.
Exactly. The tone is clear, it's articulate, it's got that glassy, single-coil sparkle that AC30s are just famous for.
And that's the sound you hear all over modern pop and worship music, right? Where you need that clarity and definition.
Absolutely. It's a secret weapon for that. Now, as you move up to the mid-settings on the sound knob, you hit that critical edge of breakup zone.
The sweet spot.
Arguably, yes. The sound gets warmer, and it becomes incredibly reactive to your touch.
So it cleans up when you play softly.
It does. It's perfect for rhythm crunch. Think of those dynamic Tom Petty tones or maybe mid-period REM.
That's that amazing touch-sensitive area where you can play with your fingers and it's almost clean, but you dig in with a pick and it just snaps and growls.
That is the definition of a great tube amp experience, and the BC2 really nails that feel.
Okay, so what happens when you crank it?
When you crank the sound knob up to the high settings, you move into full crunch and drive. Here, the tone kind of smooths out a little bit. It offers this really singing breakup.
Bluesy.
Very bluesy richness, yeah. And a heavier indie or alt-rock crunch, you can get these beautiful sustained notes. Think Brian May, that kind of singing lead tone where the notes just bloom.
But it's important to be clear here for the listener. This is not a high-gain metal pedal.
Oh, absolutely not. It tops out at a very musical, vintage-voiced classic rock drive. If you want metal, this is not the tool for the job.
So it covers this huge range, from shimmering clean to vintage crunch. That brings us to how people use it. I mean, beyond just plugging it into an amp on stage.
Well, because it models that full chain preamp, power amp cabinet, it's an incredible amp in a box for direct recording.
Ah, so you can just plug straight into your interface.
Straight into the mixing board, you get that finished mic'd up amp sound immediately. No need to wake up the neighbors with a loud cabinet.
And because it's technically a preamp, I imagine it also works really well going into a power amp or an FRFR setup.
Oh, perfectly. An FRFR, a full-range, flat-response speaker, is ideal. For players who need absolute consistency night after night, running the BC2 into an FRFR gives you this powerful, lightweight rig that sounds identical no matter the venue.
It just fits that modern need for portability and consistency.
It really does. It delivered this iconic, hard-to-control tube sound in a perfectly consistent little package.
Okay, let's move to the final assessment. Pros and, well, considerations. On the pro side, the sources are pretty much unanimous. This pedal is extremely musical and expressive.
It really is. It's so responsive to your pick dynamics, to your guitar's volume knob. That's often the weakness of older digital modeling, but they got it right here.
And it's a genuinely faithful AC30 voice.
It is. Plus, that active EQ gives you a ton of flexibility to match it with different guitars, whether you're using humbuckers or bright single coils.
But we should talk about the considerations. I mean, no pedal is perfect. Because it's modeling a very bright amp, it can get A little piercing, right.
It can, yeah. If you push both the treble knob and the sound knob really hard at the same time, it can get a little shrill. You just have to be a bit careful with that top end.
And it works best going into a clean amp.
A genuinely clean, neutral amp is ideal. If you plug it into an amp that already has a strong mid-range character, you kind of risk the two voices fighting each other, and you can get a strange, sort of congested tone.
Okay, so here's a question. If the modeling is so dynamic and musical and touch-sensitive, why do you still hear that common criticism that Kago SM can sound a bit polished or maybe sterile compared to a boutique analog pedal?
That is a great question, and it really gets to the heart of that digital versus analog debate, especially with technology from 2011. That polished feeling usually comes from two things.
Okay.
First, the inherent conversion process analog to digital and back again can introduce this tiny layer of smoothness, maybe a bit of latency that some purists can hear.
And the second thing?
The second is that while the model is really dynamic, it can sometimes lack those tiny, chaotic, unpredictable imperfections. The microdynamics that make a real tube amp feel so visceral almost, alive.
It's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off. The BC2 gives you perfect consistency, but some players will miss that little bit of random chaos that only a real cranked tube circuit has. And we have to mention, it's a mono-only pedal. That's a key limitation for anyone running a modern stereo rig.
Despite those limitations, though, its legacy is really strong. It definitely carved out its own niche.
Oh, for sure. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the BC2's reception among those British rock, indie, pop, and worship communities has just remained solid.
It's still highly regarded.
It is. It's often cited as one of the most convincing AC30 emulations you can get in a standard compact pedal. And now that it's discontinued, well, predictably, it's gaining some serious collector interest.
So wrapping up, what does this all mean for you, the player today?
Well, I'd say the BC2 combo drive really stands as this beautifully voiced, dynamic, and highly expressive solution.
It lets you get that authentic AC30 color and feel that chime and crunch without the weight or the hassle or the ear-splitting volume of the real thing.
And its success proves something really fundamental, that digital modeling, even from over a decade ago, could successfully capture something as complex and dynamic as AC30 chime. Which raises an important question for you, the listener, to think about.
Go on.
How much further has that foundational COSM philosophy evolved since 2011? Where do we see its descendants today? You know, in modern BOSS multi-effects like the IR200 or the GT series, the BC2 pioneered a very specific voice for a specific need. Understanding how it worked is really key to understanding where digital modeling is at today.
We'll leave you with that thought. Keep digging.